Hey. Alright. Another extra stream. Switch off time. It's not gonna be a timer. Or actually maybe a timer. Or not. Let's see. Which one can I paint more? Could do a little bit more on that maybe. While we wait. I should probably write. Hey, someone. I gotta start load up the chat so I can see who wrote. Let's see. Zelin. Welcome. Let's how's it going, Zelin? I was updating the website 30minwarmup.com with the old episodes this morning, trying to catch up on the massive back catalog, and I saw some pretty cool ideas, which I thought that I should consider working on next week. The idea is next week on 30-minute warm-up on the mornings to develop a concept every day rather than drawing a new one. I continue drawing on one. I think there's some pretty cool old sketches I think are worthy of redrawing or develop further. Especially this kind of mechanical voodoo priest. Zelin, no, the idea is that I'll sketch one of the concepts or sketches out better, you know, like develop a concept, just to see what that does to 30-minute every morning to one concept, you know, playing with proportions and drawing it from a different angle and so on. I don't know, just to test things out. I think it could be a cool little 1 week journey. Hey Dado, how's it going? Yeah, so today I'll be doing paintovers for the 2 week challenge. It wasn't one last Saturday because I was in Croatia. So this, you guys got a 1 week extra. Hey, Modner Rodner. Like fully finish one concept for work. Let's say half a day for sketching, half a day to a day for final like detail pass, and then one more day for like fully rendered. So 2.5 days, more or less, for a fully painted character with line art, etc., etc. But next week I can't do that. There won't be enough time, so I will just do line art only. I won't do any painting because I want to play with design more in my portfolio. I have enough rendering. It doesn't intrigue me as much as like concepting something cool. That gives me more personally. So I want to start developing concepts instead of for paintings. And I was thinking in Croatia, like I want to almost remove my portfolio and start from scratch and only do line art designs. Hey there, Bart. Welcome. That's cool, Dadotronic. Hey, Lanyard. Thank you very much. Glad that you de-lurked and said hi. Glad to have you here, Mr. Lanyard from Kansas. It's quite a distance. Hey, Main Machine Rex, you're back. Welcome back. So what was going to happen today for you new people, I'll do paintovers over the 2-week challenge. And this 2 weeks challenge, this time is a snippet from The Hobbit about Smaug, the dragon. So you guys have been drawing at dragons, and I'm going to be providing some feedback and thoughts, etc., etc., on your paintings. And the 2-week challenge is posted in the Discord, and the link to the Discord is underneath the stream if you want to join. It's a great little crowd of people helping everyone out. I unfortunately haven't been able to be very active lately because I've been busy and also been abroad. I'm going to be a bit busy for a while as well, so I'm not going to be as active as I used to be, but still be around, of course. Just a little bit less for some time because I gotta do shit, get stuff done. Hey, Kilrathi. Welcome, welcome. Let's do it like this for the stream. So now it's Inception. So I usually, before doing the feedback, I usually sketch around for a bit, letting people drop in. I'll probably be doing it for half an hour more, and then do paintovers, and then we'll see for how much longer I have energy to sit and stream. Usually the paintover sessions, they tend to be 3 hours. Excessive amount of feedback usually. But this time around I didn't see too many entries, so probably gonna be a bit faster. Tack. Yeah, but about 30-minute warm-up site. I think I'm really looking forward to start to play around with it. At the moment, what's on the website now is extremely bare bone work in progress. But I have to catch up on all the streams, and when I'm done playing catch up, uh, I'm going to start when I have time to add more pages and content in that sense of features, etc. But for the time being, as I'm a very busy guy, I'm gonna have to play catch up with all the past streams. So I think this morning I managed to update the archive to episode 110, I think. Let's see. See where I ended up. This one. I can show it. The website. So this is the idea of the website, right? That you should be able to see me live here and all the other core streamers on one page. You can see me live. Yeah. And then there's going to be like a community aspect, so that you guys, if you are streaming, it'll show, so that anyone that isn't a part of the core team can stream. And it'll be like a art station, but with Twitch windows. And here you can 110. So here you should be able later to like find the community streams, etc. And up here is the core team, like core streamers that agree on a schedule and help educating. But I want to add more stuff to the website. At the moment now is far from what it should be. And then you see each day's stream being uploaded. So for me, it's my channel, but then there are going to be other people, so that you can go and find their episodes, and so on. And then on each one you click, you'll go and see the episode of the day and the finished picture. So this one I like the idea of it, and I think it would be cool to further develop. I got some ideas for it. I think that would be cool. Yeah, well, so that's so this is the website, but as I said, the website is me trying to put something up as I was preparing the lecture for the workshop. So it's far from what I want it to be, but it's I think it can be really cool in the end, but I need to fix it properly when I have time. But hopefully one day. Mean Machine, I am making the website. I am no web developer, but I'm trying. I know a little bit. There was one guy who was helping, but he pulled out. So now it's just me. I don't mind. It just takes longer. And at some point, I want to hire someone to help out properly. But at the moment, I'm still kind of figuring out how I want it, etc., etc. So I might as well do version 1 of the website myself, and then down the line hire someone when I want to upgrade the whole website, with a whole new package. Oh, that's cool, Mean Machine. That's great. I will call upon you then with fire and with a fire signal and howling at the moon. And at some point, you gotta come and help me. But yeah, like I said, I'm still figuring out really how I want the page to be. So having some professional helping me wouldn't really help that much at the moment. But one day I will, for sure. Maybe not you. I mean, you're not even offering. You're just saying that you're coding. But yeah, in general, I'll try to hire someone to properly help fix all the features I want. But I've been looking around on internet about widgets for WordPress, etc. And WordPress just updated with functions that I had planned to want to use for somehow to kind of hack into the website. But I saw now that uh, they've added that as a feature already to the latest version of WordPress. So I'll high-five myself a little bit this morning seeing the update. I was like, yes, finally. That's cool, Me Machine. I'll definitely uh, ask later, but I still want to kind of play around with the idea a little bit myself. And when I have time, it's a little bit of a pet project, and it doesn't take too long. And I want to set the catch up. Dadotronic, oh come on, stop being the hero here. It's like, oh no, it's okay. I don't need it. I don't need it actually. Just don't say anything. Dado, Mr. Hero. Of course I will have a look at yours and give you feedback. Why not? You took time to make it, to help the community, be a part of it, and of course I should. Of course I should spend some time on it. It's only fair. Now I lost where I was. Train of thought. Whatever. It's a fun project, this 30-minute warm-up. Yeah, now I remember. I want to catch up, and so that when I've caught up with all the streams, I update just once a day like normal. I don't need to do all the manual Facebook posts, etc. That I've set it up so that I'll just click all the buttons for all the social media platforms. So I don't need to go to each page. I just go click, 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 and do mass posts. And then I can continue to do my work, because now I have to do it all manually. Mean Machine. Yeah, sure. Post the link. I'll have a look. I mean, I can give you my point of view. I'm not like the almighty, "Thy must remove image number 5." But I can definitely give you my thoughts. Ting. Is your name Ting? That's pretty cool. Now everyone will see. The whole of internets. Hey, Makington. Or Macke Ington. God kväll, god kväll. Hurri huomenta? Is that evening or morning? Hmm. This, I wouldn't say, it doesn't need to be in a portfolio website. How is this yours? Oh, you colored someone else's line art. Okay. Um, is this from photo? No. Hmm. Hmm. I would obviously it's not photo like thinking, oh, did you paste a photo? But it has some strange JPEG artifacts in there. It could be photo. It's a very uneven portfolio. Like all these doesn't look like the other ones down. I mean, if you posted this 1 day ago, and then this, it doesn't look like the same person. 2 days ago. This is from photo. Oh, is that your son? Oh, that's pretty cool. That one. Lou. Well, it has to be what you should have in your portfolio is the most accurate description of your skill set, and a lot of it looks like. I mean, if you have something like this in your portfolio, which makes me think, how can you make this? It doesn't look like the same person at all. So it's a bit of confusing. Um, maybe you're a good copier in the sense of your eye-hand coordination, or what you see you can draw. But it's very uneven, and all these sketches don't need to be on your portfolio website. Only have the very best. And these jellyfish ones. Is it really important that they are on your portfolio? That these four has to be in there, or maybe you can choose the best one. You have to think of it like that, like which is the best representation of where you're at and where you want to go. And as an artist, like no one will hire you for this. I mean, and maybe it's a personal like sketch or whatever, but I wouldn't put it in a portfolio. I would make a website or a Tumblr where you put all your sketches, so you can have your sketches URL and then portfolio, because people look at portfolios on ArtStation to hire people, and they don't want to hire someone for sketches. So just be very, very heavy-handed in your selection in what you think is the best representation of what you can do, and only have that, and only the next update to your ArtStation is the new very best version of what you can do, and don't post sketches or in-betweens, etc. It won't do any good for you for your career, other than make your own sketch site or a sketch blog on a forum or whatever, so that you can post your sketches and fun experimentations. But for example, like I haven't updated ArtStation with my sketches. I did some, the very best, just to kind of create traffic to 30-minute warm-up last year at some point. But I want to remove a lot of images from my ArtStation profile because I don't think it's correct. I can show you mine. It's very old stuff on it, and that's also one of the reasons why I want to remove it. So here you can see I posted some of those sketches, but I only upload the things that I've worked on that I feel like are worthy to upload. And but a lot of these are old, and you know, colors are fun and all that, but I feel like, I don't know, I want to go back and just do line art stuff. A design heavy portfolio. Like this I wouldn't put on my portfolio, this sketch I'm doing now, unless I feel like that it has something that I like about it, that represents me, or I feel like, yeah, this is me in a painting, that I feel like this is worth sharing. I mean, I'm sharing it here, I'm sharing it on other platforms, but not on my portfolio, because it's like if you imagine walking down the street and going past shops, right? And in the shop windows, they'll put the most interesting products they have in the best way possible, with the perfect lighting and so on, so that you go like, oh, what's that? I want that, and then you go into the store, and then you see all the other stuff. It's the same idea with a portfolio, right? You gotta in your portfolio, it has to be this like storefront, store window. You really have to have your very best at the very front to make people go like, oh wow, what's this? And then when they keep on digging and going in, or chasing you down, you can have links to all your other stuff, you know, when they're interested. But it's really important to don't muddy the water, so that when they look at your portfolio, better to have really strong 5 than 20 a week, or 20 in the middle. Because those 20 in the middle, you know, you go walk past the store and go like, well, that's an old skirt, or you know, those shoes looks like dirty or used. You don't go like, oh, I want to buy those used shoes or badly made shoes. And the store selects the things that they feel represents the store and what's in the store the best way, you know. So that's how you guys think about your portfolio. But then you should also have sketch places and sketch blogs or whatever, where you can just put your explorations and sketches and tests and fails. And it's hard to do. It's hard to look at the body of your work and go, oh, which one should I put in my portfolio? But think of it like you have 10 spaces, right? And you select your 10 drawings and you look at them, and then you look at the rest of your body of work and think, can I take one of these and replace it with one of those? Which one don't I like of the top 10? And you look like, okay, that one is probably the weakest, and you put that at the bottom of the 10 list. And then you go, which one in my archive can I replace the weakest one with? And which one is the best to replace it with? Is it one of the same portrait, or is it a painting that shows a completely different side of you, so that you can communicate that as well? So it's a little bit tricky, and it's a little bit, you have to also showcase things for the future, right? So what do you want to get hired with, and not just what do I want to show that I have done, right? Because people look at the portfolio thinking, can I use this person for something down the road? And and if they see you drawing cars in your portfolio and you freaking hate cars, but you still have it in your portfolio because you think you have to have it because you want to get hired, and all of a sudden you get a car contract, and you go like, but I hate cars. I added the car just to show that I could do it, and then you have to suffer. So it's also a little bit of a tactical game like that as well with portfolios. And worse is having studies in a portfolio. No one cares about studies. It's a false representation of your artistic abilities as well, because you're looking at someone else's decisions and copying them, while then you get hired and you're unable to use references because you need to create your own stuff, and then you're in that room. You're stuck. Does that make sense? Or am I just kind of rambling? Maybe I'm just saying the same thing over and over. Could be. Could be. Shiny. Dear Bard, yeah, definitely. That's even the worst when they don't write it's a study, and people think like, "Wow, did you do that? That's amazing." And but it was just a technical masturbation rather than your own artistic ability. Thanks, Morphia, and hello, welcome. That's good, Meat Machine. I mean, your sketches and so on, Mean Machine, there were nothing wrong with them, but they don't belong in a portfolio. That's the only thing, right? They're great sketches and so on, but you're sending a mixed message. Looking at your portfolio, I would be scared hiring you, because looking at your worst drawing versus your best, the gap is so huge. I wouldn't know if I would trust you with something. And it's a thing. How do you represent your work at the very best way? And think about it yourself. You have this lump of money, you want to hire a person, and then you see picture one, solid, picture two, completely opposite, that you don't understand if that's the artist who's done it. Would you trust them with a couple of thousands? Or would you go look at another portfolio where every image is equal, more or less equal in quality level? Then all right, this person has no problem making us as static quality, or not static quality, but what's the word? Even output. Hey, Illigzy, you're new. Welcome. Welcome to the Saturday stream. Welcome. Let me do one more button so it's official. One second. Oh man, my neck is too powerful. Hello, and welcome to no. My neck is pure power. Can't be contained by the top button. Yeah, it's a great. Illigzy is great. Like your first exposure to me being silly on a Saturday night. I promise you, the usual morning stream at 9:10 is not. I'm not sitting and drinking beer. Consistent. Thank you, Hellraiser. Exactly. That's the word. Consistent quality. Hey, Georg. Welcome. Glad to have you here. We are getting ready for paintovers. 2 more minutes, probably, while I'm ranting and sketching on this warm-up that I've taken a little bit further. I kind of like it. There's lots of issues with it, though. As you can see in the zoomed-in window, it's early days, and I'm just kind of messing around. And I was at the workshop at IFCC, and a good friend of mine, Mike Avazido, had a lecture. And funny enough, a lot of points in my lecture he was talking about as well. And he was on after me. Hey, Ladzius. Thanks for the follow. Ladies. Is it a funny word for ladies? Anyway, so his lecture was very similar to mine. But one thing I really picked up, and I know I am doing wrong, and hearing him say it was like, yeah, I know, I need to do it. I need to stop doing this mistake over and over, and this information will be good for everyone, and the information is as follow, is like he explained it, which is a great explanation. Let me why are you not saving Photoshop? There we go. So he didn't show the example, but I'm showing you the example in word that he used words for, but I'm visually explaining it. Come on, words. Stupid brain. Anyways, I could have easily used a gradient, but screw it. Right, so what he said is that you have to simplify the value range, that when you're rendering, so that you don't have a smooth gradient between all the shapes, because it makes it really hard to read. So what his explanation was like, when you're rendering something, and let's say you're detailing a part of the painting, and you're doing all these very, very subtle value ranges and shifts and all these things, and you get everything in there. And he said you have to simplify it, so that, let's say, from here to here, you group them into one value only, so that you simplify the value range so that it reads clearer. Obviously, you can't be as heavy-handed, but let's say on a cluster of 0 to 100, maybe every 5 steps of 100 up and down, so that you have 15 levels of gradient becomes one gradient or one value, so that you can much easier define structure and volume, so that you don't muddy the water with too many different subtle value changes, that it doesn't help you. And I can totally see that being the issue. Like if you look at like this render, like we can clearly see the lit side, kind of, but there's a problem in this painting because it has a full range through it all, and there's no like clear grouping of values, like strong statements in where the light should be and go. And it's a I know I'm making this mistake, and it's a thing I'm always struggling with when I'm rendering. So that's really something that I took from the workshop, was just this little comment from Mike. I need to be bolder in my grouping of values. Lads, I do 3D as well, but not publicly and professionally. For work, I do 2D only. Everything is rendered by hand, even marketing art, etc. I don't want to deal with 3D in my career, but I do know ZBrush, I do know Maya, I know how to model, I know how to animate, all these things. But that's nothing I put online. Um, I like to dabble with it a lot, but I don't show it because I don't want to invite that genre of clients. Hey, Baba 220. There, bird. Yeah, values are tricky, and you really need to group shadow, light, and value ranges in between them. Let's look. Illigzy. Uh, you definitely need to practice the basics more. I don't know if maybe you're a beginner, but so this is your drawing. First, don't worry about painting. Worry about like having the proportions correct, but don't make lines like I did them like that. But I'm drawing them so you see. What you got to do is first is to measure everything correctly. So you measure with your eyes the distance between everything. So you draw up like from the top of her head to the jaw, approximately in the middle is her eyebrows, right? So you go approximately the middle is the eyebrow. So you know where the Roman pillar is. It's this space in between the eyes. And then let's say you measure the eyes, and then from the jaw to the nose is slightly less than middle. And then between the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the jaw, her lips is slightly above the middle. And then you just measure everything, and you measure the distance between the eyes. It's usually one eye. And then you check the shape of them and all these things. Like if we make a line down like that, her lips isn't as wide. So if we know that line down like that, her lips should end not at the center of the eyes, but further in. And that's how you have to measure everything, and either by actually drawing lines like I did to show you, or eyeball it. But you really, really, really need to measure more. And looking at your drawing, you haven't done any measurements at all. And that's back of the basics, observational skills. Practice, practice, practice. Break everything down, measure everything, practice seeing proportions and distances. All right. Let's see. Let's check Discord for all your fantastic contributions. So for anyone who want to join the Discord, the link is underneath. Just click the Discord icon, and you'll come to the welcome section, and you'll get some basic rules, and yeah, take it from there. One of the rules is play nice. If you can't play nice, you're not welcome. Okay, let's kill those pictures. Okay, that's one. Lajlo did Smaug armor. All right. This is all I've done so far. Kenji. Hey, Kenji, you're new. It'll be an honor to paint over your lovely Smaug dragon.
All right.
Hey, thank you, Elixi, for the follow. Thank you. Oh, here we go. Here's Dearbard's dragon. Dearbard, you have become so much better. So much better. I still remember the very first 2-week challenges you entered, and seeing this now, huge progress. Here's Zace, fantastic dragon. Let's see, I know there should be a Dado one, Sofa Strangler. Is this the final version of Sofa Strangler? Might be. Let's see. Maybe it's finished. Let's see. Whoa, someone has been dissecting. Oh, Sofa Stranglers. That's really good, Sofa Strangler. This is the way to do it. That's really good. I want to use this in the feedback, but this is perfect. Let's see. Eric. Right. Eric Mui. I thought it wasn't a lot of entries. Boy, was I mistaken. Here we go. Gonna be tomorrow morning. Here's 220. Mr. Bobo 220. Fantastic. There's gonna be so much feedback. Oh, God. Gonna die. Here's Dado's. Oh, so good. The Dado does amazing art. You should all go and give him some love. He's very active as well. He really puts a lot of effort into his community and evolving his skills and helping everyone. There's Zillions. This doesn't look finished. I guess I'll give it some feedback anyways. see here. Zealand, she, don't know Zealand's gender, did lots of them. Really good sketches. Oh, here's mine. I did not finish it. It's one of the sketches. I did many. Let's see. Oh, Svensson's. Svensson is good, but not good enough. There's always something bad. Okay, sketches. Here's one of mine. Smaug. Just a quick sketches. Sayarts. That's from the previous one. Previous challenge. This previous doodle sketches. Mean Machine. There we go, Mean Machine. That's yours. Right, that's it. Alright. Okay. Back to Zealand. Ah, you're a guy, alright. Babu 220, yeah, I know. I'm gonna pay for it. By the way, if you guys want to link your stuff, go ahead in the chat, as long as it's nice and clean. So this is Sayart, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Sayarts. That's how good I write. Right, so I think this one has lots of potential. Obviously, the biggest is Smaug is red. He's mostly blue. That would probably be the biggest issue. But I'd say the light is pretty cool. But as I said, the thing with what Mike Avazido said about value range is that you have to simplify the range a bit. So by doing that now, hopefully, it'll read better. So here's my very quick attempt at simplifying the value range so it reads clearer. And I think you can clearly see just by this little tweak. Azavido. Oh, there we go. I'm horrible with name. I'm sorry, Mike. And thank you for correcting me, Dado. Azavido. Yeah, so simplifying the value range. Maybe you don't want to go as high contrast, then you just lower the intensity a bit. Now, besides that, I think the palette is very neutral. It's neutral light, neutral darks, and everything just turns to something without character. So let's a quick Google to find an image to prove my point. Let's see here. A picture that doesn't suck. So I can prove my point. everything is just washed out. Anyways, all right, let's go with this one. I won't find a better example. But what I wanted to say was you gotta have a you gotta have temperature, and you have to play with the temperature of the palette so you can push which is being lit and which is being in shadows. So if you look at this screenshot, screen grab from the movie, you see how they have like cool neutral grays versus very hot oranges, so that when we can clearly see which form is turning into what direction. And the problem in this one is that we can't really understand which is being lit by direct light and where the ambient light is. So if the guy is being lit, the dragon is being lit by, let's say, warm light, you really got to make sure that it reads that way. And then everything that is not being lit maybe has a different temperature. Now I'm making a very big statement. I'm gonna tone it down, and I think I gotta do it differently. Let's color range the darks. Something like that, but probably not that weird. Maybe something like that, so that we can clearly see the relationship between the light and. Oh, cool, Pablo 220. Thanks. I'll check Discord when I get to him. So that's the biggest problem, is that the temperature doesn't.
All right.
The temperature shifts doesn't make sense. Zizopia, thanks for the follow. Much appreciated. Yeah, Mike is great. He has really clean and strong values. And secondly, what you can also do when you've set up the relationship between the colors, you can easily push shapes back and in depth by. Oh, thanks, babe. Now you can put it. Or do you want to? Okay. You can easily push things back in space by temperature rather than darkness, right? So a lot of people use black as an indicator of moving back in space, but a lot of times you don't need to do that. You can just use desaturation or a temperature shift to show this is not being lit or this is further back, because in a lot of lighting situations, going dark isn't necessarily the correct way to do it. So by having control over your values and having control over your hue shifts, you can more easily direct the viewer in the complexity of the painting, when it comes to depth, etc. So that's a really important thing to remember. And a lot of people make that mistake, that they use neutral black as a like shading element, when it completely destroys a painting. Hey Sayart, welcome. I'm painting on your painting. Um, and secondly, it shows the lack of understanding of depth and relationship between colors, especially in lit areas when you're using black. So always try to, especially if you're having more realistic light, always try to think about accents, um, and where to use them, because it's like with everything, it's about contrast, right? You can't go full on everywhere, because then you're losing the contrast. So it's important to think about strategically place accents of colors, and I don't mean local colors, but let's look at the head of this monster, right? We can look at the orange here. You can't really go that much stronger because it's quite already up there. So if we add an accent to that, you know, it does change the perception of that area. But if we start adding it everywhere, we can no longer see the accent on the eyebrow. Now, let me zoom in a bit so you see it clearer. We don't get that contrast anymore because we've used the accent too much. So let's reduce it all those marks back down. And now looking at it, we see this orange, stronger orange at the eyebrow as an accent. And you can help push that by having cooler colors, for example, like that there is here on the forehead, or neutralize colors around it, so that the orange gets more intensity, because as you can see, we can't go more saturation, it's already full. And in order to get more power to the orange, because you can't go more orange than pure orange, you have to dump or neutralize the colors around it, so that when you do paint the colors that, you can't go whiter than white. White is white. So that in order to get more saturation and accents, when you boosted the palette too much, you have to start removing saturation in your painting, and dictate the rhythm of the painting that way, so that you know where you have your punches, rather than they just go all swinging all over the place. But you're not going to be able to read the painting because it's just all over. So one thing is also, when in shadow, like I said, don't use black, and you can use grays and greens and all these things instead of black. And one simple way to look at it is let's switch off all these and going back to this normal one. He's obviously using darker blue, which is great, but the relationship between the colors are neutral. There's no temperature difference, or there's no hierarchy in how we should read it. It's all just one complete range. And one good way to do it is to help you see it, is use posterize. And posterize puts everything into bands, but you set it to color, and then you can start seeing the bands of color, right? So let's simplify it. So we see there how lumped up the palette is, and then we do another posterize on this end, and now we see like how the colors are being lumped together, right? And you can see the difference between them is not very huge, right? It's very similar. There's no real separation between it. So one good way, and I'll show it now, is that when we have separated, why is it? When we've separated them now more in temperature, let's do a posterize just as a test, and lump the colors together, and it should now be quite should be quite different. Yeah. So now we can clearly see, you know, that the orange is more saturated and the back here is more greens, etc., etc. I mean, it's not a foolproof test, but it can help you see the palette that you need in order to separate them clearer. So I can go more in detail of everything, but I think the biggest problem was the value range and the colors, and also I think the framing could be stronger. Also, what an easy problem to make is that you detailing everything where it doesn't need to be detailed, and framing or like staging of the dragon. Like, where should we look? Should we look up here at the rubble, or is that secondary information? You know, can we reduce a lot of this information to benefit seeing Smaug coming out of shadow, etc., etc. You know, like, where do you want to put effort into telling the story? I think that is the one of the more weaker aspects of this painting, is the sense of where do you want us to look. We can look at it compositionally, like where you've placed it, and I think it reads quite well. You know, with the placement of the dragon, how it positioned, and we loop around the painting. I think that aspect is great, but then we look at the values and everything else, and it kind of falls short a bit. So this is your painting, original, and you can clearly see the neutral palette, etc., etc. And it's all very localized. And here's just a little bit of better grouping, stronger relationship between what's being lit and what's being shadow, and boosting some of the saturation and accents, etc., etc. And there should be a clear, you know, when you start thinking about it theoretically, it's a clear improvement. Fundamentally, when you're making decisions as you're starting the painting, and not in the end like I am doing, I'm correcting the mistakes in the end. Start always thinking at the very beginning, after line art, if you're doing line art first, what is the temperature, where's the focal point, and hold back a lot of the punches and make those decisions early on. Say, here's saturation, here's desaturation, here is green, here is strong orange, and then don't spread it out too evenly, because you're losing that punch, which I had to go back in and reinforce in your painting. So plan ahead, and control your values so that they're not spread as a gradient from 0 to 100 in a smooth separation. You need to separate them and lump them together much stronger. All right, so who was this? Oh, Kenji added flats as well. Pretty cool. All right, Sofa Strangler. All right, cool. Let's see. Babo 220. So, Babo 220s. Babo gave us lots of excuses. So let's see.
All right.
Thank you very much for the follow, Chris Delag, or D-Lag, like a gangster. Much appreciated. Thank you for the follow. Thumbs up for you. Just for you. What's your name again? Chris Delag, or Del. I'm just gonna stop messing around. All right. I like it that the armor is actually Smaug, that there's a breastplate opening. I think that's really cool. The pose is not working. the shoulders and hips are squared up, and by that I mean the relationship between them um, are even. You know, there's no rotation, there's no pose, there's no. The square and hips are equal in rotation to the spine. They're completely boxed up, and that's never interesting to look at. So that being put aside, I I can change the pose, but you probably know that you wrote as well that the pose is somewhat less good. Um, so again, classic Mike Avazido, Azevedo. You see how shitty I am with names. Stronger groups. That's something I'm just gonna. I know I'm just gonna be telling everyone now because that's everything I just been thinking about after his lecture. And this little like passing comment he made, and I was like, shit. Of course, that's my mistake, over and over and over again. So I'm sharing the hatred for my own mistakes with all of you, and you're all getting the same treatment. You have to have the same pain as I have. Anyways, so stronger groups of values. So there's a clear separation between what's lit and what's not lit. Looking at your original colors, etc., they're very nice. You know, I love the little red and all these things, but unfortunately the value range is a bit flat, so it feels just like that. It's a little bit flat. When we talk about design here, I think there's some really cool design elements of imitating a horn. I think the shape of them themselves, they are a little bit wonky. Like there's no actual structure in the horns in the sense of the distances between them and the wonky line and the distance between the lines on the horns are very similar to the distance of the things on the plume. Is that what it's called on a helmet? So what you're doing is you're neutralizing the impact that they could have. So I would probably recommend that you tone down the banding of the hair on the plume. I'm assuming it's a plume. I don't know. Don't listen to me. Simplify it or add more complexity to it so that they are separated from each other. And let's see, zeolite. How you have better temperature is about controlling the temperature of what's in shadow and what's being lit. You should never mix them as a gradient. You need to separate them by decision. Like if the light source is cool and the ambient is warm, like more or less in this situation, I have a warm light up there. You can see it on my hand, and cool light from the monitor. So here everything is being lit with cool light, while up here is being more lit with warm light. And if you start adding warm light here, you're ruining this grouping of the value range. So and you're getting a flat image, and you can't just add the gradient between them because it's inaccurate. You have to, with decisions, change this hue, and like here is a lot more saturation because of my skin, but then at the edge of it is very kind of gray yellow. and then all the grays and purples in my forehead and all these places. And you can have warm shadow underneath the eye because it's pointing up, and here is cool. And if you're just sampling and making the gradient automatic, you're losing that actual artistic choices to make. Where do you put saturation? Where do you have accents to guide our eye? And so on. But in general, yes, shadow, cool, light, warm. That's a general real world scenario when you go outside. Okay, back to Babu 220. The lines going down the stomach, they're cool, but they're flattening the form a bit, because the way you rendered them and the way that they are the same distance from each other going down, and they don't feel like they're placed on the stomach. I think all the design elements here of the crotch and there's a big problem that they're all fused together. All these things are fused together as a piece. That means it's going to be like a bell or a skirt of iron, which means they don't move at all, and she won't be able to spread her legs or do any motion sideways. She'll have to do like pencil skirt steps. Um, so it's important when you do add things like this to think about function as well. So how should they be able to move their legs? And if you want a line to go across, you can kind of suggest that there's an overhang or something. But you really need to think about function when doing designs like this, that you don't just enclose them completely. I think there's some really cool designs here in the boots, and the overall the design language works really well with these curved lines combined with busier areas. Um, you got this red material and this chrome material, or like metal of sorts. It is not really metal, it feels more like stone. Um, it's a really good elements, but I feel like it should be a third material in here, be it something extra shiny or something different hue. I think it's very samey. So if we look at it on face value, the original has a lot of nice little tone shifts. I mentioned that before. My crude hand changes or removing some of that very nice subtle plays with grays and reds. I think your original painting has some really cool elements of that, and unfortunately my changes are losing it. So keep those really nice palette changes. But looking at the original design, majority is the gray, red is the second, is second place, right? And then there's skin, very little of it, but that's it. You know, there's no more to it. I mean, I would love to see some more space for maybe some sort of leather, you know, so that maybe you can add belts or some segment in between, or something that adds a little bit more of a layer to it, so that it's just not stone, metal, and red. You know, you can add a little bit of cool little details that places it more in real world versus graphic designy, I'm not real treatment. Um, I think the shoulder things work really well together. The shapes, they're kind of Asian inspired. I think it's really good. I think the pose, like you mentioned in Discord, it doesn't really work at all. It's it's a very odd pose. The leg probably should be more like that. The arm should probably not be flat against the side. It's a forced position. It's not a natural position. I would probably move the arm out a bit. not having it so close to the body. But you'd know that probably. I think her waist is a bit too thin. But most of the things I really like. But I think it's missing a little bit of material behavior. I mean, if you want it to be shiny metal or not shiny metal, I don't know the intent of it, but it feels like it should have a little bit more character in the materials, so that we can clearly see a separation if it's metal or if it's whatever this red material is. They're all a little bit too similar. Design works though. I like the dragon mouth sword. I think as it's kind of tapering, it needs a little bit better shape so that we can see some function to it. It's really hard to understand what this weapon is used for. Maybe a handle, maybe some sort of indication of the use of it. Is it a throwing thing? We can't really understand what it is. Hey, welcome, Static Kenji. Kenji! Welcome. You're new. Yeah, I mean, you could redraw it. You could repose it. You could copy-paste parts, shift them, rotate them. But it's a really good base. Some changes for sure need to be done. But I'd say they are quite easy fixes to do. That doesn't require dramatic changes, more of subtle changes that'll overall improve it. One thing as well with the loincloth, be careful of whenever you're doing decisions in placement and size, be careful that you don't cut them the same size across the character, because when everything is distanced the same, you're neutralizing them and they don't become unique, right? The reason why the shield works with the eye is because the sizes are different and we're seeing it and instantly reads it. But if you look at his version with a skirt, hip, torso, stomach, etc., it's a lot of very same distances, and it just becomes this wall of equal information. And the only reason why we separate them is because of their local value difference. So the metal is metal, and that's why we see the red being separated. But if you disregard that aspect, shape-wise, it's all very same. And I'd say that is that's the biggest feedback I have for you. I mean, I could go into details, but with these things said, I think you could do some dramatic changes on your own end. So we've done Sayer's feedback, Dado 220. Let's go to this guy. And Kenji has an update. I will get it. There we go. It is you, Kenji. You're new. You're new to the community. Welcome. All right, so I think it's really cool. It's a really good start. The biggest problem I see is the hands. The claws, they're very inactive. It's like mitten hands, and they are both facing Let's see if I can mimic it. Like they're facing away. Like he's like, there's no emotion in the hands as well. They're like, and thumbs pointing in for some reason. Like he really puts effort into turning the thumb in, but all the rest of the hand is like limp fish. That's his pose. So obviously, the hands are not communicating the emotion. Um, I learned the hands are the co-stars. That they are when the main actor is doing something, they need a co-star to be able to bounce off or to emote more accurately. So the hands are the second serving of the emotion. So what humans do, we look at face and then hands by default because that's how we're wired. So we look at the emotion of the face. He's looking angry of sorts, but then the hands are limp, and so the confusion is instant, right? And especially because you have high contrast on the claws, they almost become primary read. And because that emotion is lost, we don't know what we're looking at emotionally. Secondly, yeah, he's very angry. Yeah. Right. Let's move on. One thing that is good is that the shoulders and hips are not squared. There's a rotation, there's movement, but there's a second layer of issues here. You're indicating, like, let's try to sketch it out. So the rotation of the torso is like that, right? The center line is like that. We see that, and the hip, center line of the hip, probably something like that to some extent. There's a rotation. But the every surrounding information here and here, and is this his leg? It's a bit confusing of what goes where. And the problem is that you gotta have indicators of volume change, of how do you show that here the torso comes down, right, and he's rotating, and we're starting to see that the volume over here. But you gotta have things that show that it's shifting direction. Like this section is great to show that there's movement and separation of volumes. And but here in the lower part, we have no indicators of is this a leg, is this a tail, what's happening. There's no volumetric information even in the lines or details that this comes forward, this goes backwards, this is rotated. It's just one mash of what's happening. And the biggest showcase is or proof is that if I remove the center thing that indicates rotation, the only thing in that scene that indicates what goes where, when we're looking at it, it is nothing. It's just mishmash of things. So the centerpiece is great to indicate direction, but then everything that surrounds it is fighting against it. So you're losing a lot of momentum in narration. And the same applies to the tail in the background, is that you're you're not showing, let's say the tail is going into perspective, right? So if we would do intersections, um, ellipses to show that it's, you know, moving into space. If anything is complete now, you're indicating moving into space with the ellipses being almost perfectly vertical lines, rather than an ellipse like that. You're flattening the ellipse so it's just a circle, and it's flattening the whole illusion. Plus the size of that is very similar to the size of that. Um, and we don't know what part, is this a wing, or is this a wing, or is this a wing? Is that the wing or the tail? Is that the tail or the wing? You know, so it's very confusing, and that is helping with the confusion of what we're looking at. Like, look at that when we flip the image, the bottom part, and then those. Yeah, I'm gonna stop shitting on your hands. But that being said, I think it's really cool elements. I really like the scales. The scale looks like hair. I dig the T-Rex looking mouth. The eye is cool. The ears are different. You know, it's a fresh breath, breath of fresh air. It's all very cool. The wings, I think it is the wings with the membrane, is a bit confusing. But all in all, I think it's a really good drawing that could be a lot better with paying more attention to volume changes. And like here is very thick, but then it goes thin again, and then thick again. And it's a bit confusing. And I would also maybe probably have, because of the central stomach part, maybe, you know, have it in the inside of the hands, maybe maybe around the eyes, or towards the front, just to help dictate the rhythm, because then you could help show that here's a leg. I don't know. I don't know how your legs are going. There's a bit of a chaos, and you can help with a little bit of pulls of the central part across the design, so that it's better statements, cleaner read. All right, that's you being done. Thank you for your first entry, Kenji. Next, Dear Bard. Like I said, you've improved a lot. It's really cool to see. And I read that you indicated it's a concept, and that's cool, which means that we're looking at it in a different point of view. So it's not really illustration, even though you've illustrated the concept. So let's look at the parts of. If you think about what I told Kenji about Hans being the support cast, his fingers looks broken. One thing that's very important is to try to show weight in placement. So something heavy never stands on tippy toes. If it's heavy, it always supports the weight differently. It always has a point of contact, so that the distribution of weight can be placed stronger. And with yours, the line of the arm goes all the way out to the fingers, and because the line of the arm is straight, you don't see the planting of the weight. So like you can look at yourself as well in front of the mirror. Uh, if you point your leg out when you're standing in front of the mirror, there's no weight in it. But then if you shift your hip so that you have to put your weight down, your heel naturally goes down and the weight goes into the heel, and you shift and your other foot can be raised. So it's really important that when you want to add weight, think about the weight distribution and a point of contact where the mass goes into it. So if it's someone light and swift, they can be tippy toe all day because they don't have mass, right? Because they're super quick or they're ninja or whatever. So that's a good thing to think about, and that one big part of it is line of action. You know, like dancers, they point with the toe when they're dancing, and there's no weight in that. So that being said, let's look at the shape. I think the torso has a cool shape. I think the wing has a cool shape. On the hip, you're losing some of that potential impact of design you could have used. You know, maybe the hip goes up a bit. Maybe there's some characteristics you can, if you would have maybe bigger hip bones or some indicator of hip bones, you could have a depth. You could play with rotation in Z depth. And I think this shape is cool. I don't like the simplification of the like indicating volume. I know what you're doing there, but I think a little bit more finesse, and I think it could have been gotten better. So it should maybe indicate muscles or a cluster of information like you have underneath, just to help dictate the rhythm differently. Otherwise, it's just a blanket treatment, and again, you lose contrast. The same goes to the thorns on the back. I think they're great indicator of rhythm but they're a little bit too random. I would probably try to merge the bottom a little bit so that they don't become standalone objects themselves. They become more part of the body than almost like he has rocks on the back. You know, so by removing that point of contact or contrast point, now it just becomes a flowing part of it rather than rock, 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 rock. You know, where we clearly see an edge below and an edge above. I really like the head. It's starting to have a really good balance between shapes. I think the perspective is drawn really well in the eyes and mouth. But one thing that I talk about in my character design lecture I do at workshops is the importance of big, medium, and small shapes and how that dictates the design. So looking at all the horns, they're all the same size, and there's no one being the main guy. You know, that dictates everything, and then
All right.
everyone else needs to be submissive and listen to that. But then you can't have two presidents. You have to have one president. Then you have vice president. Then you have blah blah blah, and then in the very bottom you have the peons that do all the jobs, right? So by looking at your painting here, is all these small ones. They're great. The starting to become medium-sized shapes. You know, that's fine. This part is medium to large, which is cool. Lots of small information like clusters that dictates rhythm is cool. But then you're missing that next step. The horns are all falling into forgetfulness because they're all the same size. So you just have to make a decision saying this is the primary horn or this is the primary shape, and then make sure that you're not battling the rest with it. Like I was trying to tell Babu 220 that he was doing lots of thumbnails for the dragons, and I said try to express it more, have a clearer hierarchy and so on. And he attempted to do that better, but I didn't have time to really break down the thought process. But I will record my lecture for character design and give it out for free on YouTube. So stay tuned. It's coming. It's coming at some point. I just have too much to do. But yeah, so rhythm is very important. Rhythm of size, rhythm of shapes, rhythm of placement, composition, and so on. You're really at a good start, but there's lacking that primary shape that dictates the rhythm. Hey, Legion Reaper, welcome. And by the way, Projector Titan, Projector Arc Titan. Thanks for the follow. Much appreciated. Modner Rodner, probably very, very long midsection. Could probably shorten it. Hey, Daniel Jonsson. God kväll, god kväll. Swedish. My pleasure, dear Bart. And the same for you with Babu 220. It's all one material. So try to add something else. If you don't want to add a different material, obviously his dragon. But try to add, like you've added on the stomach, a tighter difference in texture. Like in my face alone has a couple of different materials: hair, skin, eyeball, teeth. It's just not all one, and that helps interesting contrast in behavior and ability to define different behavior and shapes. So I'm not saying go crazy on the dragon, but always try to have some more complexity to it, because with contrast you can make a point, more statements. Legion Reaper, no. I at the Discord, which there's a link underneath, there's a 2-week challenge. I post a topic and you guys have 2 weeks to do stuff, and after those 2 weeks I do a special extra Saturday stream where I do paintovers over your submissions. So this I should have probably read it, but this 2-week challenge topic is: Smaug was the last dragon of Middle-earth. He was slain by Bard, a descendant of Girion, Lord of Dale. A deadly winged fire-breathing dragon, he was described as red gold in color, and his underbelly was encrusted with many gemstones from the treasure pile he commonly slept upon once he had control of Erebor, the Lonely Mountain. The Arkenstone was buried right in the pile he slept on, but Smaug never noticed it. Smaug had only a single weakness. There was a hole in his jewel-encrusted underbelly on his left breast area. Bilbo Baggins discovered this, which led to Smaug's death. That is this 2 weeks challenge. Last one was look to the left, look to the right, but don't look up. She hates being seen, I think the previous one was, and it was monster themed, so draw a creature. So you guys get 2 weeks. So after this stream I will post a new topic, and then in 2 weeks I will do another paintover session. Yeah, all right. Good job, Mean Machine, to eat meatballs. The right move. So I think with the feedback, dear Bard, I haven't done really a lot of paintovers. But I think I gave you a lot of good feedback that you could apply to the rest. I mean, the wings are all one material. I would like to see some change in the wings. You know, there's room to improve for sure. But really good job. Some of the shapes on the arms and legs and so on is a bit random. And again, those could be in hierarchy in, you know, big, smaller, a big, medium, and small hierarchy. Right, next one. Who was this? Who was that? Zay. Zay. I am drinking juice, by the way, not alcohol. Alcohol is bad for your kids. Okay. First impressions. Really cool mood. Second wave of impression is it's lacking information. Last Saturday, 2-week challenge, I drank apple juice all evening. So, I understand that the composition. Zay wants us to look there and then look there. So if you look at the contrast, this place has highest contrast next to this one, next to that one. It's over explaining the hand. I would subdue this. And much like Avazido, lovely Mike Azavido. I'm bad with names. Don't listen to how I pronounce his name. I'm butchering it. The value range is yet again, it needs stronger groups, but the problem in this painting, which can't have an easy fix, is that the values are very evenly spread across and you can't really group them by a quick fix. So what I gotta do now is manually group the values a little bit more. So by just grouping everything, it should improve the read. Palette-wise, it's a great beginning. It's a warm palette, but a lot of the light is white, which unfortunately kills it slightly. It's not that bad. It could just be better. So one thing that, if you guys remember, I talked about accents before, and when everything is the same intensity and the same saturation, things easily get lost, and you don't see the artist's purpose of where to look. It becomes muddied, like the communication is muddied because it's evenly spread across too many areas. Like I said about on Sayard's dragon, I painted that accent on the eyebrow, but then I also started adding more accents across the body, and you would lose that impact. It's the same issue here, is that it's used everywhere in the same intensity, and you're losing a lot of that impact because of it. So what I would do is probably like boost some of the areas so that it clearly becomes a strong palette, and then remove it, and then go back in and paint that correction layer, and make sure that you're starting to dictate where you want the points of saturation, so that we can starting to see a clearer look over here, don't look over there. Baba 220, I know. I'm like I'm saying, I'm horrible with names. I'm shit with names. Mike Azevedo works for Riot. He's a good friend of mine and a fellow lecturer at workshops. So we got a stronger focal point, but then the body gets lost. We don't know really what's happening. So what I would do is I would start dictating a little bit more of the body, and maybe some cooler hues, desaturated cool tones, just to help push the temperature of the orange, so things that are in shadow can go cooler and desaturated, so that when you do want to punch up the saturation, you have room to do it. Like I said for Sayarts, you can't go more orange than orange, so you have to desaturate areas around it so that it makes sense. And the reason why I mention Mike Azevedo all the time is because he mentioned something in his lecture at IFCC, which reminded myself of my own mistakes, which were to have two wet spread value range. You gotta group them much clearer and simplify them much more, so that they're really stronger. That's the only reason why I keep on bringing Mike up. It's because it's fresh information that I want to share with you, and I see that mistake in all of your paintings. That's the only reason why I keep bringing him up. So you can start playing with focal points, start playing with pools of light to help dictate the rhythm of the painting, where we should look. Usually with strong, intense light, like he has, it's never high contrast difference. Like you see the light of my hand, it's not a perfectly sharp edge. Here it is. The edges are sharper, but on my hand they bloom, and they have the most highest intensity. So that's something you gotta keep in mind, is like looking at the guy without the changes. It's a very noodled, intense, high contrast light. Zealin, that's a good idea. Maybe he'll be a core. I think it'll one of the core team on 30minwarmup.com. I think that would be a good addition. I'll talk to him. He should. He's a good friend of mine, or not like good, like we. He's a friend. I've met him many times and talked about him many times. We are lecturers at a lot of same workshops. He's a cool guy. Very friendly. If you ever meet him in person, he's super bubbly and he's just a beast. Right, so focal point. Keep pushing the focal point. I can keep doing the changes, what I talk about. but it feels also like I'm saying the same thing over and over, and it's just a matter of time to prove my point. And I'd rather see yourself put the effort in
All right.
to do the changes. Thanks, Astro Duck Stare Eater. Star Eater? Stare Eater? Astro Duck Star Eater. One thing that's cool is the greens in here. They really help with dictating rhythm. A lot of the shapes in the background here is a bit hard to read about the wings, so maybe make a clearer statement of maybe he has his wing placed in the money, like he's where maybe he has a second set of paws on the end of his wings, or not. But I think it would be a good little arc to frame Bilbo. It's Bilbo. No, I don't remember who was doing it. And I even read it. I don't know. Yeah, so keep pushing focal point. Don't have such high contrast points all over the place. Make sure you dictate where we should be looking. Have pools of light to help navigate the picture. Indicate the body more. Also, these rocks feel very much the same in value. I would probably try to have some separation here. Maybe we see the light of the Hobbit on the rock behind, and his hand needs lots of work. It's really bad. Co-star to the main actor and all that. You need to make sure that the hand is indicating the right emotion, and not my hand now. Obviously, doesn't look like a hand, but that looks like a sea star. And the same feedback about temperature as with Sayart and all that. Next. It's like the Michelangelo God and Man finger wheelie touch. Let's see. Sofa Strand. This is the new one. This is the latest one. Pretty cool. I think with this one, I really liked the research you did. It was really good. I think it didn't translate. All that hard work didn't translate well enough. I think what happened was you went into have to paint mode rather than planning it everything like you did. I think the way you did it was perfect. All the sketches and breakdown, and here it just became you have to describe it, and you fell back into comfort zone in the sense of doing the mistakes and strengths that you have, but it's very arranged. There's a block of mountain here, there's a block of mountain here, the dragon in between, some mountain and clouds. If you remember a long time ago, I did a paint over for, I think it was Sayart, and how he has to push the It wasn't maybe Sayard. One of you guys. Um, the camera angle, composition, and how you see it. You know, this guy is flying, right? But he's flying left to right. Wings are very even. We are eye level, right? Here's the horizon line, most likely. That we are eye level with the dragon, and it doesn't have any impact, right? We don't go, holy shit, dragon. We go, he's at my height. He's between two rocks. Doesn't matter. So let's take that same principle, right? So we're standing. This is our eye line, right? We're standing here, looking. If you would draw a house, we would draw the house in perspective. Right, so you get it. I don't need to go super stupid. Anyway, so we're standing, and but what if the dragon is flying towards us, right? And he's swooping down, and we can see the wings covering most of the sky from where we're standing, and maybe the tail is coming down and scraping the ground, and he's screaming with his teeth towards us. Like that statement alone engages us much more. We don't need that arranged static thing to be able to explain what we are experiencing, right? Because the way you drew it is very neutral and without impact, even though you are attempting to make impact with the cards that you put on the table, right? So that this statement that you made early on, saying the dragon is flying in the sky high up because there's two mountains and there's clouds, and he looks the way he looks with his menacing wing claws and all that. But what if you're making that exact same statement, but in an angle where we're seeing the monster coming at us? You know, you could still make the exact same dragon, but as an observer from in your world, looking into your world, we will be treated with this like, whoa, I should take a step back. Or, you know, what if we drew the dragon, you know, like lying down with the wings slightly raised, but looking like that, and then in the very end we see a tail coming up. That indicates a completely different dragon, right? And that shows a certain type of character that you want to convey, right? Maybe he's a sad dragon. Oh, he's lying there. Oh, I'm having such a bad day. Yeah, that's one thing. But for you, dear Bard, your issue was, as it was more concept based, you needed to take it that one more extra step. And Sofa just did full illustration, but didn't take the illustration all the way that needs to be done. So it's like in between. So one really good way to do is it concept or illustration? Illustration needs to go this way or that way. You know, it needs to be cinematic, it needs to be engaging, it needs to be impressive. You need to be there, right? You need to have a sense of purpose of the illustration. Concept can be just line art, no light information whatsoever, and then everything is about design and shape and so on. So you gotta make a decision. Is it an illustration? This one? That one? Then you need to then you need to push that more. Or if it's a concept, then you need to scale illustration back and make that decision. So it's a step you need to take early on. Okay, that being said, design-wise, I think it's pretty cool. I like the sleek body. I think the shape of the wings where they touch the body is too cone-like. They're just tapering, and there's no rhythm to it, and you're ruining a lot of motion that could be gained from it. Exactly, Sofa. So what you got to do is just, you know, like think about angles, shape, differences between the shapes. How interesting can you make it, and make sure that the sizes of all the joints and distances from them are not the same, so that you're going to have a collection of same sized sticks at equal distances. You need one bigger, one smaller, and play around with the composition of that so that you get an engaging picture. That's why the head works really well, because the sizes are different there. But switching my changes of, it's all becoming quite equal, and you're losing that impact, that interesting composition of shapes. I mean, looking at my headphones, like the proportions of them, like the hole there versus the hole here versus the line versus that line, it's not very even. It's very different, and it becomes, I mean, this is not the perfectly designed headphones, but the proportions are interesting, right? Because each size is different, or each shape is different, which causes a point of interest. And that's something that's very important to keep in mind as you're designing. Did I hear a lot of noises? No. Surface triangle, yeah, definitely. But also decide, is it illustration or concept? Okay, so I think you don't need to do buttons, but observe things. I think that's the best thing to do. Think about distance between objects, but then also composition if you're going to do illustration. I can change this, but I think the changes are going to be dramatic, and it's going to be a new painting, and it's better for you to apply the feedback and in your own way. Okay, who was this? Buttons, I mean, I think he just means look at actual objects. Let's say this is a button, you know, rather than there's no term that is button. Let's see. Come on. Come on. Where are you? Mystery person. There we go. Eric Mui, who's writing. I will answer you later. So Eric Mui. I think in this one is a perfect example of a good pose. Robson Michelle, after the stream, 1 second, I'm gonna be the crazy professor. After the stream, we're gonna post the new topic. We're gonna do the new 2-week challenge after the stream. I usually have to go and have to go and dig it out and come up with what you guys gotta do. So it's after the stream, usually half an hour after the stream. I squeeze it in. Oh fucking, I'm hot in here. Anyways, so Eric, muy cool pose. It's obviously not finished. There's a huge problem. I don't need a man bun. That's where you're wrong, Meat Machine. No. All right. Green environment, red dragon, doesn't gel. There's no temperature shift. Too much over explanation in the environment. Where's the focal point? Where should we be looking? The same kind of feedback like for everyone else. But in this instance, I think it's a slightly different feedback. He has a great pose, pretty good composition. What he gotta do is just push the agenda of his illustration further. You know, like what does he want to say with the illustration? Where should we be looking? We obviously should be looking at Smaug. He's angry. And start building the scene based on that. That being said, I'm not super keen on the palette. So let's do some changes to the palette. No. This is not helping. No, what the f— The reason why I made a color gradient or the gradient map is to harmonize the palette slightly. I'm probably overdoing it, you know, heavy-handed and all that. But it also flattens the relationship a bit. Papa 220. Yeah, next week I'm gonna just be sitting and sweating and like, too many entries. Anyway, I hate this thing, this general area. That I will get a haircut soon. Right, anyways, so the problem is, which I'm attempting to try to fix, is that the light is flat. I think Eric ended up not finishing the painting. I think he had to go on vacation. So what you just, the biggest problem is that it's such, everything is isolated and there's no harmony, there's no connection between the places in the illustration. The light is slightly flat. Luckily it's easy fixes, but easier said than done. So just break the green world. Everything is just green on the environment. Help dictate the focal point. Probably make sure that there's a high contrast around the head, so that when Smaug is screaming, we're seeing the power of his scream, right? And let's dictate the rhythm in the sense of where we should be looking. So let's have some higher value over there, so we follow the line of the castle going towards Smaug. Morphia, I will shave it and go full like American History X, and then just have a beard, and then have like intense eyes, and just have weird swastikas all over the place. Why did I go racist? I don't know. I'm not. So one problem with the Smaug here is that he's being lit from the side, and it misdirects the eye because we are looking for the light source over there. So by removing that, we'll have a stronger read. True, it could definitely have some fire, but maybe show just like some spit, lava spit, or particles. I'm a sucker for warm palettes. I love warm palettes too much. I don't want to go too much with color balance and flatten the relationship between all the colors, because you can easily blanket treat all the hues with too much color balance. I don't want that. I want a good relationship between cools. It's too much. Cools and warms. But maybe we can play with the setting. That's pretty cool. Oh, that's better palette. Yeah, it's pretty close. It's pretty close. Pretty good though. I think Eric Moy really captured a good pose for the dragon. Yeah. But like his is very neutral. At least now there is a little bit more of a direction of the light. I feel like because his was very isolated, all parts are treated in one color. There was a tendency to be very the same treatment to all the paintovers, because I had to establish a lot of values and color shifts that I haven't done really. You know which I talked about for Sayarts, where the temperature have to change and so on. But it's a good painting. from Eric. Just needs to have made more decisive decisions earlier on, and making sure that they translate as he's painting, so you don't get very a lot of parts that don't connect to each other in color and value, etc. Like this, they don't sit together. Now at least we can start picking focal points and see how they relate to each other. Before, after. All right. Next one. This was Baba 220 again. I think with this feedback, you can listen to Dear Bard and the person before Dear Bard. About design and planting weight and shape design, you know, what's the rhythm, etc., etc. I think go back and listen to that, those two, three feedback for them, and you should probably start seeing the mistakes being made. So Dado, Mr. Fantastic Dado Magic, Dado Almeida at Dadotronic. So looking at this, I have some issues with it that irks me. The biggest is the placement of the darks. Right, so we have a vertical black line going, oh, not vertical, horizontal black line going through the painting. And we have a relationship up and relationship down from that black line. And nothing merges except on the far right side. And it's too late. Too late to establish that when it comes to relationship, because we're being separated too much. It's like one drawing up, one drawing down. They don't belong to each other. So that being said, we are starting to having to search for relationship connections between those two spaces. So we see the coins, but then all the coins are falling in that angle for some strange reason, like it's raining sideways. So one way to help solve the problem with connecting the spaces between each other is maybe have more coins at some place, breaching that dead space in between each other, so that we start to see, you know, maybe Smaug is standing up, and we see maybe some more cluster over here, so that when we do look at the painting, we are connecting the upper part and the lower part of the painting together. Or in another way, you could maybe put a back leg in there to help help the gap. But with like with everything, overlap is probably the best when it comes to composition. So by overlapping the hobbit with the leg with the gold, ties them all even further together. Secondly, when it comes to pose, when you're crawling, reaching, that emotion, you would never have dead toes. You wouldn't have flat foot on the ground. It doesn't make any sense to do that because you push with toes. We are monkeys. We use the toes to stabilize and get a point of pushing forward. So because you have dead toes, you're losing the motion of the pose. So I would probably put the toes down and then in order to boost that sensation, make the arm bigger and almost touch the blade. And having the blade like horizontal like that probably wouldn't be the best idea because we have a lot of horizontal lines. We have a lot of horizontal lines going through the painting. So maybe, just maybe, what would be better is possibly have the knife standing up. So that number one, you have overlap, which helps sell the connection between the shapes that are overlapping. So the narrative is enhanced. The same, like now he is overlapping Smaug's leg, while the knife is overlapping his hand. So now we have established that kind of a relationship that they are connected, right? Without having Smaug putting his paw on the hobbit. That would be overstating the connection. But now we have that communication between the shapes. That also helps us. We can have reflection of the dagger in his eyes. But with any wet surface, you don't reflect dark, you reflect white. So yeah, we can cheat a bit. And let's see what this fun little thing is. I usually don't click links, but screw it. That's funny. One little thing that you should think about when communicating emotions is that when in love, etc., you get large irises, and when you're scared or frightened, you get small. So he has quite large irises at the moment. So maybe make them smaller so that the intent becomes that he's not loving the knife, right? He's like, I need a knife. He's scared. That small little change can indicate quite significantly the emotion behind the the actor. I think narratively the rest works really well. Maybe towards over here it's becoming too many of the a lot of more similar sized objects spread equally between each other, and the narrative is muted. So what you got to do is arrange the information in a way more that has a more impact. You know, so maybe there's a coin blurred in the foreground, some coins falling down, offset this balance of details so it's not spread evenly between each other, but have a asymmetrical composition. Secondly, the same with toes. It's the same with the hand. Maybe he grabs something, holds on to it. We can see a mount, maybe. But other than that, really cool. Datatronic, yeah, I know, it's an easy thing to do. It's easy mistake to do. So I can keep pushing this, but I think based on all the other paintovers and the changes I've done, I think you definitely can understand where to take it further. So next, this was Zealing, right? Zealing. Where are you? Zealing. Mean machine, yeah, it's in our nature to make systemic patterns. I think it's really good. Let me get your more painted version. This. At least show it. So this was your second attempt, I think. What was really good with that is it's a lot more dramatic point of view focus. I think this version is a lot better. Also, I love seeing that you painted this over and over again, and it's very more comfortable drawing than the other one. The other one, you had the same problem like Sofa Strangler. Is that you're making it so zoomed out and explanatory as an illustration that you're losing the illustration. So, like with this one, you got to think about like what do you want to show in what way, and don't be scared of removing information that is not needed. So let's just take this and start removing information. That's the first step, right? Step number one, remove information so that we highlight the parts that matter. So now we're starting to see a clearer rhythm of what is important, right? She's pink. She stands out. So in what way could we have her stand out? So we have a couple of options. One of the decisions I've made so far is to have her being lit by direct light, coming down like that, right? She's being lit. We have her shadow being thrown. we see her, it's clearly a focal point. But what if she is not being lit at all by light? She doesn't have this focal point, but we play with subsurface scattering in the wing, so that she has a warm glow around her, and we indicate that there's a strong light coming from behind. To help sell the idea that that's how we give focus. Just by those two simple decisions, we have completely two different narrations, right? So here she's being directly lit. She is the focal point. She has the first stage. She's the primary focus, right? So we're seeing her. Dragon is secondary. But in this composition, Dragon is primary, and he is sheltering her, and she becomes secondary, and she becomes a anchor to the emotion of the dragon, right? And in this version, we are looking for emotion at the princess, but she doesn't deliver at the moment because she's just blocks. But then, how would you sell the idea of this, that she has the stage, right? So how is she acting? How is she praying, or is she taking a knee because she got an arrow in it? Or, what's the point of giving her all this focus? And in this version, obviously, it's the caring touch of a dragon, the shielding princess, that we don't really need to see because we get the emotion of the point, right? So these are the things that you got to make a decision about. And in your version, we're very zoomed out. There's no point of interest. There's a neutral shapes. The composition is flat. So by zooming in and dictating something, we get a lot more narrative because you're making that decision. You're choosing to zoom in and remove information from some points to give focus to another point. And it's the same idea with all the feedback so far, is that, like, what's the narrative? What's the point? Because this is not the concept anymore, it's an illustration. And then you got to go through the checklist of what you got to do. I think that's enough. I think with those suggestions, you can move clearly forward, or at least have a stronger idea of what you got to do to make your painting better. I mean, my version of that is just my interpretation of the narrative. You can choose completely different sets of decisions, and you can get a completely different output out of it. But it's up to you to think about it. I just did a gut reaction changes to indicate a stronger narrative. But whatever narrative you want to do, whether is the princess happy, is the princess sad, is the dragon happy, is the dragon dying? All these things you can indicate with color, lighting, focal points, mood. Is it raining maybe? Or, it's an indefinite amount of options you can do. You just gotta think about it. Okay, last one. Mr. Svensson art. Örjan, as his first name is. Okay. I think he did a good painting. The light is pretty good. We get the atmosphere, we get the mood, but big ass but. There's too many lines going like that, and too many lines are going like that. Problem with that is you're losing the power of the wings going up the hill by having a lot of lines going the same direction. So again, we're coming back to a contrast point. I think the floppy wings are completely fine. I think you don't always need to show structure. I mean, his idea is probably that the wings are secondary. The wings doesn't need to show power, like in them. You can easily have them floppy. It works if the reasoning is good, strong enough, right? So much like Kenji, I think was the name, the repetition of the shapes is that there's not enough contrast. All the shapes on the neck and on the arm are equal sizes. So when we're looking at it, there's nothing that dictates, I am the boss, you guys are the minions. All the shapes are the same. And the only point where we start to see a shift in shapes is at the head. And when we're looking at the head, the shape there is not strong enough. And is awkwardly just placed like a hat on the head. There's no integration. There's no engaging shapes that makes us be interested in it. It's just flat plop, and that's it. It's just a little curve to them or a kink to them, and that's it. Unfortunately, that's the case. So one easy fix would be simplify one area so that we group the information at a different scale already. We're starting to see a different read. Maybe smaller section, much more clearer indicated. That doesn't sound right. And the shape probably should be stronger rather than having it just as a floppy sausage kind of shape. Give it more structure and more character. Also group the values a little bit more, like it could be in shadow. The shape of the horns probably should be something more interesting. I mean, obviously I chose to make larger horns. Maybe Svensson doesn't want larger horns, but regardless of that decision, it needs to have a stronger statement in shapes and design. Teeth are too self-illuminescent. Doesn't help with the lighting. Svensson, though, has done really good job with separating values in temperature. He's really good at that. He does do Warhammer illustrations, so he knows what he's doing to some degree. So what you got to do is just be careful of having parallels in your paintings. It really ruins a painting by having parallels lines going through the painting. So probably a little bit more asymmetrical lighting situations in the trees will help guide the eye down, because when there's a lot of vertical lines evenly lit, it becomes a pattern, horizontal pattern, rather than a vertical pattern. So that's a good thing to remember. Stacking data needs asymmetrical treatment, so that you read it as intended rather than a group of information. I see it way too many times. Legion Reaper, Svensson is actually doing cover art for comics, I think, or book covers for Warhammer. It's really good. So that would be the biggest feedback for Örjan Svensson. Just make sure that the decisions you're making are stronger, clearer. Work on the shapes. Don't have so many parallel lines. Vertical stacking elements need asymmetrical situations to read in a more interesting way. Otherwise, we're as a human, we are disregarding the uniqueness of them because we're grouping them into symbols. With an asymmetrical treatment to them, we are forced to read them as a group rather than just our mind don't care. It sees it and disregards that data. And with asymmetrical, we have forces it. We have to pay attention. Iligi, or what was your name? Iligzi. I think it's definitely the right direction. A lot better than your first attempt. What you got to do is keep practicing. These lines, the measurements, you should remove. If you drew it on pen and paper, you erase them, or very, very softly make marks. One very important thing is try to stop thinking in symbols. If you want to learn a pretty good book, is called Drawing with the Right Side of Your Mind. It's quite an old book, but it explains a lot about observational techniques and that we're thinking in symbols, etc. And you're clearly not seeing and applying. You're losing something in translation. And a lot of it is about practicing. So keep practicing. You're definitely making the right decisions, but the space between the eyes are incorrect. The mouth and nose distances are better, but you're also drawing the nose as a symbol and not actually her nose. Look at the nose without thinking this is nose, right? Just look at the shapes. Which point is pointing down, which point is pointing up, which point is pointing to the side, and you can start constructing the volume differently. Hey, Marjorie Davis. Glad that you could make it at the very end of my stream. Unfortunately, we are approaching Traumatized. Yeah, exactly, that one. It's a good book. Good book to read. It's pretty good to explain the mind state. And right side of the brain is the creative part, not the structural part, functional part. Yeah, so Svensson has some stuff to do, improve shapes, etc. All the thing applies to him, like I talked about before. It's all just one material. He should at least introduce a second material, or third at least. shapes, hierarchy of shapes, all these things. Yeah, unfortunately, Marjorie, but I'm gonna upload it directly after. YouTube link is underneath. Unfortunately, just so everyone knows, I've set up a website called 30minwarmup.com where I'm desperately trying to catch up with over a year of daily warm-ups and video clips. So I think I'm approaching 300 episodes. So I got some catching up to do. But when I do catch up with all the back archive, I will start evolving the website. At the moment, it's a very bare bone website. It has the essential. You can catch my stream on the website if you want. If you don't want to go to Twitch, I'm going to have other streamers, like a core team that is educational, very good at explaining things and do 3D, 2D. I'm gonna try to have a cool range of scheduled artists, right? Gonna be streaming every at a specific time, and then I'm gonna try to make you guys community so that if you don't want to have a steady schedule every day or every Wednesday or whatever, you just want to stream randomly, that option is going to be there as well, so you can go like on a wall of Twitch pages and see who's live or what are you doing, what are your posts, like a blog of sorts. So you just sign up, you get posting privileges in that section, and etc., etc. But that's coming. It's not there yet. I will do that when I have time. But at the moment, I'm playing catch up while doing projects on my spare time and all these things. So bear with me. I'm the sole developer of that website. I'm no website guru or master of any of it to any extent, but I'm building it for you guys, um, like an art gym for sure. Yeah, and I want to link everything with Discord. I'm waiting for an update from Discord to help have a live chat from the website, so you don't need to install the client. You can, if you want to write to the Discord from the website, ideally you'll be able to do it as a guest account. We'll see. Hopefully they will update it soon. There's lots of new features coming with the help of your donations, as you can see on the screen scrolling there. I'm widgets, I'm buying web space. So every donation that's being made is being put back into the community and future proofing of where we should be going. So thank all of you wonderful people who has donated. It's really appreciated, and a big ol' heart to all of you, because it's fantastic. So thank you everyone for coming. I think a 3-hour paint over session is taxing. I need to go and do something else than sit and talk for 3 hours straight and doing paint overs. But thanks everyone for coming. Have a fantastic day, evening, wherever you are. Monday morning at 9:10 UK time in the morning, I will be doing my normal daily 30-minute warm-up. And after this stream, I will go and attempt to dig out the next topic for the next 2-week challenge. So you have 2 weeks to do it for the next Saturday. I will do more paint overs. All right, everyone, have a good one, and catch you later. Outro time. I need a new.